go to the phones. Calling from a 773 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This be Uchi Wally. I'm calling from Chicago.
From Chicago. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I've been idly considering writing a book for years, a political book on black conservatism and blacks and conservatism. And one thing I've really noticed is, and this was really exemplified, I think it was in the last year by the Rand Paul at the black college telling, black people, a classroom or a school full of America's best black college students. Did you know that Lincoln was a Republican? You've got this idea conservatives and even the black conservatives that black people are kind of dumb. And one way I see that manifesting is them using this talking point that black people are on the Democrat plantation, which is ineffective. It's never going to work, and it's not true. But I watched that video with Jordan Peterson 2 days ago on Wednesday, and I was really kind of offended, not only by the stupidity of it all, but the fact that they don't have any facts on their side. Peterson talked about this idea that's very common with black conservatives and white conservatives like Ben Shapiro, like you showed, commenting on the black community. What they'll say is, that they're just a bunch of little bastards, literally running around. They don't know who their fathers is, and their women are just little sluts having tons of breeding like rabbits, having all these children out of wedlock. When the truth is that I looked it up from 1970 to 2015, the birth rate for unmarried black women from 15 to 44 dropped by 40%. That actually took it down to the same rate as white people. This is never mentioned. And importantly to me is they're saying that all this illegitimate children is the problem in the black community. Now that's the same as the white community. We'll see if the black community ends up just as well off as the white community does.
Well, of course, the problem is that we have this mass incarceration rate too, in amongst
that's the real problem.
Black folk, and a completely disproportionate one. And it's at the very least been rather understandable, seeing as how there is really a whole host of so-called crimes that will get you thrown in jail if you're black, that won't if you're white. If you're a black kid and you get stopped and frisked, you're 18 years old and you got, a bag of pot on you, less so maybe now, maybe in, like in Brooklyn or different places. But, 5-10 years ago, you're going to jail. You're going to be in the criminal system. And if you're a white kid, it's like, you're lucky I don't tell your parents. I mean, that's just the reality of it, honestly. And
might even let you keep the bag.
Right.
I've heard that story.
I mean, there's countless stories like this. And so,
but one thing, go ahead.
But here's another funny part. We got this clip just coincidentally. In addition to the sort of the notion and the idea, and apparently, Uchiwala, you have not woken up, as Charlie Kirk is hoping that you will. You haven't woken up to what's going on.
He's asleep.
This is pretty funny.
I want to comment on that when you're done.
Okay. Well, there's a guy named Jonathan Blanks who I don't know what his political ideology is, but he writes for the Cato Institute, which is mostly in a libertarian outfit. Sometimes they have a mixture of people who write there. To be fair, so I don't know much about him, but
it's Koch funded though.
But it is Koch brother funded indeed. And Blanks tweeted out something. He writes, I've written thousands of words on why there aren't more black libertarians. This Facebook post from the vice chair of the Libertarian Party reminds me I only needed one: libertarians. Because the vice chair of the Libertarian Party put up this meme. I'm not even sure it's like a snowy, like...
You can put backgrounds to your text on Facebook now.
Okay.
Snowy White?
Yeah, Snowy White type of situation. He writes, I'll take a white supremacist who wants to tear down the welfare state over a government school teacher who wants to keep it. And I mean, this is the, at the end of the day, when you hear a guy like Charlie Kirk or even, Peterson or any of them talk about, black people waking up to the Democrat plantation or they are not speaking to black people. They are speaking to white people who want to be made to be assured that they're not racist. And so they're just all they're doing is basically saying to their white supremacist, white racist, and I'm using supremacist in the broad sense of, and we all have some amount of white supremacy in this society, embedded in us. But they are basically just given license to saying look, here's some room for you to operate in. And it's not to address black people at all. Candace Owens, or if that's her name, if she's actually sincere, she's not there to outreach to black people. She's there to outreach to white Republicans to make them feel better about themselves. Period. End of story.
Actually, I agree, but I think it's the way they do it is really weird. One of the ways they want to do it is that, first of all, like I said, they want you to make the subtle context that they put in everything is that black people are stupid. And, of course, they already buy into that. But they also want you to believe that black people are pathological, right? Black people are so dumb they're free, but they won't get off the plantation. Black people keep having all these children out of wedlock when that really doesn't happen. And, it's funny. I almost called in 3 years ago when there was the Jonathan Blanks, the guy you just mentioned on Twitter, actually has a Free Thoughts podcast from the Cato Institute. And if you look up the June 2nd, 2014 episode, it's called Why Aren't There More Black Libertarians? And as you might guess, there's 3 people on the podcast, and I won't even bother to tell you what all their races are. But before I go, because I don't want to go on too long, one of the things you see that they use, one of the facts that you see, and I see this from Larry Elder and Thomas Sowell and all of the particular, the Ben Shapiro's and Jordan Petersons, is they'll talk about even on the clip you showed Wednesday, is they talk about the percentage of black children born out of wedlock. They point out that it's increased from 37.5% in 1970 to 71% now. And the reason why that happened is because even though you saw that 40% drop in unmarried black women having children, you saw an even larger drop in married black women having children. As a matter of fact, it's cratered. Black married couples just aren't having children as much as they did before. So what you saw is an increase in the percentage of unmarried black women having children. And it's no worse now than the white rate. But as far as this idea, and the last thing I'll end up with is this idea that black people would be better off if they voted Republican. There's a book by a guy named James Gilligan called Why Some Politicians Are More Dangerous Than Others. It's one of my favorite books because the first chapter in it is on confirmation bias. It's by a sociologist who looked at what happens to the country when the president is Democrat versus Republican. And he looked at all kinds of different economic and societal factors, unwed children being born out of wedlock, the suicide rate, the performance of the economy, the performance of unemployment. And he saw that Democrats do much better than Republicans. And all he thought is he had found some kind of confirmation bias. But he spends the next 2 chapters telling you why it's not, and why that even if Democrats aren't the greatest with their policy, you really should vote Democrat anyway, because the country is better in almost every metric that you could look at the country improving when a Democrat's in office. It's a very powerful book, and it's like one of my favorite political books ever. Will
you send a link to us, will you, at Majority Reporters?
Sure. And lastly, one last thing is, I forgot the name. Budding Anarchist. Yes, I stole that my statistics from Tim Mice. Thanks for calling me out in the chat room and making me look like a thief.
I have a question for you, though.
Bye-bye.